we're talking about foods. GMO, non-GMO, certified, non-certified, organic, heritage, the whole group of foods. It's not what you think. This is really an eye-opening talk that everybody needs to understand because there's a lot of greenwashing. Greenwashing is saying things that make it sound like they're really, really good when they're actually not. And there's a lot of that in the industry. Food industry, is extremely corrupt. There's a lot of motivation for it to be corrupt, and it's vital to know this so that you know how to get good foods, where to get them, the best way to find out if they're good, and how to get them at the best cost you can find. So this is Your Health Reclaimed, where we expose the root causes that fuel Lyme and all stages of chronic illness so you can finally heal. We help you understand and heal the root causes of Lyme and chronic illness so you can reclaim your health and restore your life. I'm Dr. Brad Montagne, veteran functional medicine doctor. We're the one doctor out there that has people come to us that have seen multiple other docs, sometimes the best specialists in the world, haven't got any help anywhere, and we get over 90% of those people healthy again. So we're the last place that people really need any kind of care. So let's get into this because this is quite an interesting subject. We look at GMO. People hear about that. They think this GMO is terrible. They don't know why. Greenwashing, GMO is a greenwashing term. There's a movie put out a long time ago called Wagging the Dog. And what they did in Wagging the Dog is they do something to create some kind of distraction away from what the real issue is. So you don't look at the real issue and you don't understand what's going on. That's what the GMO label is. The GMO is genetically modified, sure, but what that means, most people don't really understand and realize. GMO is too weak to be able to grow on its own. It doesn't have the energy in the rootstock, in the plants, the ability to produce fruit and ward off all of the pesticides, all the pests that are going to come against it, whether that's microbial diseases, insects that want to eat it, all that. They can't ward any of that stuff off. So they've got to constantly douse GMO plants with herbicides and pesticides. That's the real issue. People look over at the GMO, think, oh, that's not good stuff. The GMO itself isn't nearly as bad as what people think. It's the herbicides and pesticides they spray on it is what makes it really, really bad. And most people have heard about glyphosate and Roundup. The two are very different. Roundup is glyphosate with a surfactant on it. That's basically like a soap that makes it stick to the surface of the plants a whole bunch better. That surfactant increases the function of that herbicide fourfold. So when Roundup first came out in the market, was put on the shelf, it wasn't used as an herbicide. It was a drain cleaner. Yeah, you heard me right. It's a drain cleaner. And the reason why it's a drain cleaner is it chelates the minerals. That means it changes the form of the minerals, pulls them out of whatever formation they were, and puts them in a different formation. In plumbing pipes, when the pipes were mostly metal, they made these rust compounds that clogged the entire pipe, and it was good to chelate those, pull those metals out of that rust compound to open the pipes up so they could flow again. That was great, but in the biological kingdom, the chelating of the minerals disrupts some of the metabolic pathways in the microbes in the soil that feed the plants. So those microbes, they convert the nutrients in the soil into absorbable forms that the plant can feed off of and use. In turn, the plant gives 25% of its energy back down to the roots to feed the microbes to keep them there. So the microbes feed the plant feeds the microbes, and it's a real happy symbiotic relationship in that. The microbes, they use the shikimate pathway to do a lot of their metabolic functions. The shikimate pathway is part of the detox pathway, the cytochrome P4 system. And the herbicides, they inhibit the microbes in the soil so they can't feed the plants the proper nutrients. So what are the plants feeding off of? That's the really huge question. Those same herbicides, they wipe out the healthy microbes in the gut that do the bulk of our digestion and let the pathogens grow. That's really critical because then we can't absorb and digest our food properly. Also, we use the same digestive, that pathway, the cytochrome P450 pathway, to absorb our nutrients, and it's the same system that's used to detoxify our toxicity. So here we have this big conundrum. The microbes in the gut are one of the 4 detox systems we have in the body. The gut wall and the colon wall are 2 more of those, and the liver's the catch-all for all those. All 4 of those detox organ systems, the gut flora, the small intestinal wall, the colon wall, and the liver, all use the cytochrome P450 system to detox things. So to impair that is a critical issue. And with the chelating in the minerals, what it does is it takes our circulating minerals and it converts them to a form that we can't utilize. So that converted form makes it so you can have your body full of calcium, iron, copper, everything that you need, but it changes the form of the key ones. And when it changes the form, they're not utilizable anymore. And make them not utilizable, that makes it so we can't absorb our nutrients, we can't detox our toxicity, and we're in a lot of trouble. So the GMO is a cover for herbicides and pesticide use. The pesticides are all estrogenic compounds, and those completely dysregulate women's hormones. Women have way more estrogenic receptors than men do, and that's why women are more susceptible to these kinds of toxins. So when we start throwing herbicides and pesticides into our food, it's really destroying our ability to digest those foods, to absorb those foods, and to metabolize those once we do that. So that's the big thing with GMO. If we look at certified organic, I'll back up. Roundup is what most people are aware of. Atrazine is more than 10 times worse than Roundup. It's what they use in corn. They'll use that in your golf fields, a lot of big lawns around schools, things along that line. Atrazine changes the sex of a lot of things in the animal kingdom. It'll make fish grow, male fish grow, female reproductive systems where they can produce fertilizable eggs. It does the same thing in the reptile kingdom with frogs. It's highly mutagenic. Frogs will have multiple sets of legs. It's really, really unhealthy, and it destroys the male sex's ability to produce testosterone and be fertile. So that's a huge one as far as that goes. So it destroys male fertility in the whole animal kingdom. So you're talking bugs, reptiles, fish, mammals, birds, the whole 9 yards. Destroys that. We got Grazon. It's a new one that came in. The Grazon is such a toxic herbicide. They spray that a lot on hay ground. When animals eat that hay and people collect that poop to go and fertilizer fields, the Grazon in the manure piles will sterilize the soil to make it so it cannot grow hardly anything for 20 or more years. So you've had a lot of people with big, huge commercial greenhouses where they used to get all their manure. They get the new stuff. It kills all the soil in their greenhouses and they're out of commission. They got to pull it all out, remediate that, find new sources of things, and completely start all over. And it's penetrated in the soil, so they've got to go fairly deep to get it out. It's not a good thing. So now we look at certified organic. That is a greenwashing system. When that term first came out, the mark was probably more honest than it is now. Now it's pretty common. We've talked to a lot of people who have worked in the organic industry, and we've been testing organic foods for a lot of years. Very few are actually clean. It's pretty common for them to use the same herbicides and pesticides that are used in commercial farming. They just put those away when the FDA comes in to do their check-ins and their evaluations to make sure they're doing anything right. And since they're gone, they come back out and they're using it. Their water supplies are commonly toxic. The foods are commonly toxic. They just get paid a whole bunch more for it. So there's a huge money advantage to getting a organic certification, and the dishonesty in that industry is pretty rampant. So it's not what people think it is, and there's your greenwashing issue. If we look at the non-certified organic, those are local growers who don't want to go through the governmental hassle and all of the fees to get certified. Those are people who are commonly at farmers markets, and they'll also sell in local grocers that are more open to that kind of an idea. You can talk to the local farmers and you can find out how they feed their plants. You ask them how they feed their plants. If they go, we don't feed our plants, we feed our soil, you're talking to the right person. You can ask a few questions to find out if they're feeding the soil properly or not. Commercial fertilizers typically create a plethora of other issues. More organic ones are more difficult to figure out. A lot of people are making compost, putting it back on there, but there's no nutrients in the soil that their compost grew off of, so they're not really putting a lot of nutrients back in. They're not aware of that. So one of the key issues for nutrients to feed the soil, it takes 5,000 pounds of elemental calcium per acre of soil in the topsoil to make that soil real fertile. The high calcium lime is only a third calcium, and it takes 3 to 5 years to release that. So if you take your 5,000 pounds, multiply that times 3, because it's only 30%, that's 15,000 pounds, and take that over an average of 4 years, that's 60,000 pounds of high cal lime per acre to make really good, rich, sweet soil. And if you don't have enough nitrogen in the soil, then the calcium drops back down. So you got to keep a lot of nitrogen in there also. So those are real critical things to understand and talk with your local grocers. The heritage is a real misnomer in a whole bunch of things. A lot of people think heritage is clean. Not necessarily. I know a fair amount of people that came back from Eastern Europe where they never got introduced to the herbicides and pesticides that are over here. And those are pretty viable seeds that are very, very productive. But the ones that come from this country, not so much so. Monsanto has had a long history of buying up every seed bank that goes for sale with heritage seeds and destroys the seeds. They didn't like the competition. So they've been trying to destroy the ability for you to be able to grow your own nutrient-rich food. And they sold out to Bayer not too long ago. There's some new legislation coming down the pike through our Congress to make it so that the herbicide, pesticide, these big ag companies will not be liable for any of the lawsuits coming down the pike. And how they can pull that off is absolutely completely corrupt. It's worthwhile getting a hold of your representative, your senators in the federal level, and complain about this a whole bunch, because these people have been evil, corrupt. They know what they're doing. They know how sick they make people. You look through the farm belts, the low life expectancy, the rate of cancer and mutagenic issues that go on in those communities is extremely high. They're very, very well aware of it. They just greenwash it, try and hide it so the people don't know about it. They just keep on with doing what they're doing. So Bayer's banking on that legislation going through so they don't have to pick up Monsanto's great big huge fines coming into the courts. So another critical issue to know is there's a huge difference in the nutrients of food from one field to another. It depends on how they either feed the plants or feed the soil. The farmers that feed the soil the proper way, who keep the nutrients up, they're more organic nutrients and all that. Their soils, their plants are way more nutritious than people who are just using herbicides and pesticides and using the typical NPK type of fertilizer issues. So the more organic, the old manure styles, when they're not using herbicide, pesticide laden manures, doing some healthy compost with all that and rotating fields, those are the best nutrients you can get. So it's really, really critical. Another thing is the longer the time it takes to go from harvesting the food to putting on your table, the more nutrient degradation there is. Been a fair amount of studies on this. You can lose 50% of your nutrients just in a week from harvest to the table. So if something's grown in a different part of the country, shipped halfway or all the way across the country, you're talking 3 to 5 days of shipping, easy going across the country. Here, you've lost half the nutrients in that food and is really worthwhile eating. So to go to your local farmer's market, knowing what I've just talked about, you ask them about herbicides, pesticides, how they feed their soil, what they're using with organic issues. A lot of organic growers think that they can get away with using neem because it's allowed in organic foods. But anybody that has lipid metabolism problems where their fat metabolism is impaired and they're not digesting that very well is likely to have very, very highly reactive toxic reactions to neem, and they can't eat that food. So it's really critical to ask what they're using. Some of the organic herbicides are more toxic than the big ag ones that they use out there. So it's important to know what kind of herbicides would be used on the foods that you're doing, to ask your local growers on what that is. And if it's a farmer's market, take your cell phone and look it up. It's really, really important to know you don't want to be buying foods with this kind of toxic stuff in here, because that's what sets the stage for all your chronic illness. And most chronic illness is avoidable if you know a few things. So this is Dr. Brad Montagne. This is your Health Reclaimed. We release these episodes every Monday and Thursday. If you like this, follow us. Put a review on here so other people can find out what we're doing here, because we're giving people the clues on how to get healthy and stay healthy. So until next time, thanks for coming. Bye.